BB851, turn right, heading 180. 14 Papa, turn right 245, report localizer established 27.
Euro White. It's a term that can be used consistently in recent years following the unveiling of new liveries by carriers around the world within the aviation industry. Euro White is best defined as an aircraft livery predominantly white with a relatively small logo on the tail. Nowadays, in modern terms, that extends to the airline's name, being written in block text towards the front of the aircraft. From Lufthansa to Aer Lingus to Iberia and many more other airlines have opted for this scheme. But why is that? I had the chance to sit down with Edmund Hewitt, a highly respected man within the creative sector of the industry that was behind the Northern Pacific Airways livery, among many others, and has worked extensively in branding of airlines to understand better some of the critical decisions made by airlines. If you'd like to listen to the full podcast, which I'd highly encourage, you can find it on DJ's Transport or on streaming services. One of the first points noted was that of business. It's an interesting point, potentially not considered often as much, and that is airlines are business prone. And what does that exactly mean? Well, the core focus can be on maximizing profits where possible, and these people being executives and those that make the critical decisions at an airline, do not believe that investing in the brand and therefore the livery itself on a creative level achieves anything more than a very simple livery could. That simple livery being, as we know it now, Euro White. Ultimately, these people are driven by decision making, as best described by Edmund, and decisions that maximize their profits, as I discussed earlier. Is this a bad thing? Well, no, it actually does make a lot of sense in the grand scheme of things. There are benefits to having a more streamlined livery, if you will. However, there are also positives to having a distinctive brand, which I'll definitely be getting into. What cannot be ignored as well in this deep dive analysis, if you will, is that Euro White didn't just start 5 years ago. It can actually be traced back to the late 1960s and even into the 1970s, with notably UTA, a French carrier that did adopt a predominantly white plane, large titles, and a bland paint scheme on the tail that extended down the aircraft. This is a carbon copy of most liveries nowadays, and they weren't the first, but they're certainly one of the most notable for this day and age we're talking about. So for now, in the 2020s, it's just became the way forward and certainly a more modern interpretation of airline liveries. Now, I've discussed why airlines will do this kind of thing. However, what are they genuinely missing out on when it comes to a beautiful colour scheme? With the insightful words from Edmund, he noted that many are not willing to take a risk, nor are they savvy enough in the marketing world. The people that are being savvy, I'm talking about executives there. Therefore, from that point, it ultimately can present many challenges. Some executives simply do not appreciate the investment that can go into the marketing side of the industry, whether it be with the interior, the livery on the outside of the plane, or the general branding, and will do anything possible to cheap out on that option. Executives spend money on things they can understand, and that's buying fuel and aircraft most generally. However, very rarely will they spend money on ideas as they see it as too much of a risk, and obviously their money could be better used elsewhere according to them. As for the concept of Euro White, they see the planes as flying billboards. Slap one thing on it and that's it. Edmund described that this can also take away from the glamour that flying can have. So instead, you get bland liveries that, let's say, they aren't all horrible, but I think we can most definitely agree that there's been a look in recent years that has no imagination, no symmetry or sense of heart, and a number of livery updates, including potentially Lufthansa, Iberia, Icelandair, and so forth, have followed these exact points I just made. Concluding though, white planes are less expensive, and ultimately for these airlines, you pair that with the theme of the video, and that being executives wanting to cheap out and also not understanding marketing, it honestly does make perfect sense. You can, however though, which is something I definitely want to mention, make a graphic element look good on a white plane. Modernizing can work as well. North Atlantic Airways, in my personal opinion, is a brilliant example of having a largely white plane that many could label as Euro White, but doing it in the right manner. Of late though, it hasn't been done to a satisfactory standard, in my opinion, for a number of airlines. Liveries are an essential part of the aviation industry, and to many of you watching, probably something that's very important. Of course, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, they're not the most crucial thing. Making profits, fuel, planes are far more important, but they definitely stand true and have a place. Therefore, it cannot be ignored the way trends are heading, and that is why I really wanted to take a look at Euro White. I hope you enjoyed this different sort of video and the deep dive analysis with thanks to Edmund. Once again, as I mentioned, if you'd like to listen to the full 1 hour interview to learn a whole lot more about graphic design, airline liveries, and airline branding, it can be found on DJ's Transport or on all streaming platforms. Thank you very much for watching. Do take care and be safe. I'm excited at the prospect to bring you brand new content like this in the future, and I'll see you next time.